Welcome to the Dream Power Show, where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Welcome to the Dream Power Show. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. We continue our exploration of ways to empower yourself to live a life you love with purpose and passion. You know, I'm a big advocate of working with our dreams for insights into our deepest desires. But we can't do this unless we sleep well. Internationally renowned sleep researcher Dr. Rubin Naiman joins us to discuss the relationship between sleep and dreams and why we're experiencing an epidemic of sleep loss. We also can't grow if we're shackled to beliefs that were handed down to us from our ancestors. Systemics work and Constellation expert Judy Wilkins-Smith shows us how we can break those patterns to achieve the success we want from life. Too often, many of us shy away from our greatness. Life Mastery Coach Donna Tashjian tells us how to stop living based on what others think by turning our baggage into luggage. And Coach Jeff Leisawitz gives us his tips on how to successfully navigate through life through rediscovering our inner creativity. There's a whole lot to tackle here, so let's get started. We often talk on this program about the powerful images and messages we get in our dreams. And toward that end, I'd like to offer up this quote, which helps explain the beauty of dreaming. From Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams, REM dreaming effectively morphs our fundamental sense of self. But to have these incredible dreams, we have to be able to get a good night's sleep, in particular, to get into the REM stage of sleep. And what happens if we have trouble sleeping? What happens if we don't enter the REM stage at night? Are we actually harming ourselves by having dream loss? And if so, what can we do about it? We're going to explore all this with the author of the quote I started the show with, psychologist and sleep and dream specialist, Rubin Naiman. Rubin is a professor at the University of Arizona's Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine, a pioneer in dealing with solutions to dream and sleep disorders, and the author of several books, including Hush, a book of bedtime contemplations. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Rubin.
Thank you, Debbie. Happy to be here.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And before we get into the subject of dream loss, I want to ask you, what got you interested in studying the effects of sleep on our dreams?
Yeah, I'm always baffled by that question because I don't know why everybody isn't interested. I think of sleep and dreams as being really the roots of the tree of waking life. It's so much a part of who we all are. And of course, so striking that many of us don't pay attention to it. But the short answer, frankly, is when I was a teenager, I started experimenting with psychedelics. And that just blew the world right open for me and got me interested in psychology. And here I am.
So when it comes to dreams, I mean, it is generally accepted that most of our dreams occur during the REM stage of sleep. Without getting bogged down into all the scientific jargon surrounding that, in general terms, what happens to us during REM sleep?
Well, I think lots happens. I mean, for one thing, when we're sleeping and dreaming, our attention, our focus, our senses are no longer directed into the outer world. We come inward, we come into our deeper selves. Many of us don't know that territory well. We have difficulty sort of remembering, attending to, and bringing it back. But those of us who really do begin to connect with that find a vast universe inside that somehow parallels the outside. So REM sleep is a window. It's the largest picture window, if you will, that opens repeatedly through the night that allows us to look into the dream world. I'm one who believes that dreaming goes on all the time. You were hinting at that earlier. It's a little harder to see during the day. Dreams are like stars. People think they only come out at night. The truth is they're there all the time. We can't see them during the day because of the brightness of the daylight, of the sunlight. But the dream is always there. And the dream is most visible during REM sleep, the REM dream. But again, I believe that there's an underground stream of dreaming that goes on all the time.
Well, certainly during sleep, because REM isn't the only time that we have dreams at night, although they are the most common ones, you would say?
They're the most vivid ones. There's been evidence for decades that there's another kind of mentation, a kind of dreaming that occurs in deep sleep. If you think of REM sleep as being a bright, vivid cumulus cloud against a deep blue sky, the other dreams are more like high, wispy cirrus clouds. They're clouds, but they're not really as visible or vivid as the other dreams.
Mhm. And when we're in REM sleep, are there dreams during the entire cycle of REM sleep?
Yeah, I think, again, the dreams are there all the time. The extent to which we attend to them really depends on a lot of personal factors. But one interesting thing that happens, we live in a time where there's so much attention given to this notion that the body and the mind are one. And I don't believe that that's true, actually. I think they operate in unison. But what happens in REM sleep is interesting. And this sort of parallels old sacred traditions, this idea that the soul leaves the body. So the body goes into REM atonia. Our voluntary muscles, the muscles we move with, go offline in REM sleep. Meaning if we awaken, we can feel paralyzed for a few seconds, but the mind in one respect leaves the body. So REM sleep dreaming is an out-of-body experience. Our experience is no longer limited to, we can touch without our hands, we can see without our eyes, hear without our ears. So we're no longer in the body. We can time travel, we can move through walls or shift identities. So that the mind, in a sense, leaves the body. But also, from the body's perspective, it's an out of mind experience, right? Because the mind, who we are, the psyche, the ego sits on top of the body, as is the case in many of these mythic images like centaurs and Pan, where there's a human head on top of an animal body. The body is more natural, animal-like, and the body gets a break from the brain, if you will. The body gets a break from the mind. And we know that there's a disconnection between prefrontal cortex executive function and lower limbic sort of emotional and body-related functions. So the body needs a break. The body and mind are a mixed marriage, and they need time apart.
Because in one of your articles that I read, you were talking about, the way we use language and even how we sort of devalued the word dream by associating it with material things like, oh, it's my dream to get a new house or a new car or a new job or whatever. It's the material thing as opposed to what it is for us and ourselves and our own dreams in more the metaphysical physical sense. Could expand on that a little.
Yeah, you're suggesting it's one of the more common uses of the word dream in our culture. The American dream refers to a house, right? Or sort of a certain economic stature in which you can buy a house, and not to minimize the importance of that in life. It's important, but it is an interesting use of the word dream. Today, we even in the sciences, we're beginning to look at the dream as the way we look at natural resources. And God knows we've kind of torn the planet apart, digging for all kinds of natural resources, from metals to precious metals to water and on, and chopping down forests. But we're doing the same thing with dreaming. If you think of the dreamscape, it's an internal parallel to the landscape. And what's happening now, which disturbs me, is there's a lot of very sophisticated and very well-funded operations to hack the dream. And really, one of my colleagues, a prominent dream researcher, recently had a contract with a beer company and used dream-like inception language during the Super Bowl to encourage people to dream about and then buy a product. And this can be done. The dreaming mind is really powerful. But I think we need, in the same way we need to be more respectful for the landscape and natural resources, we need to realize that we can't really tamper with the dreamscape without hurting ourselves. So dreaming, the dreaming mind, the unconscious, the collective unconscious, is intelligent. It's not just a mechanism. It's not just brain function. There's a wisdom. And I think part of the problem today, a big part of the problem, is we are reticent around respecting the unconscious. In fact, I think to varying degrees, people are afraid of their own unconscious. They're afraid of the unconscious in others. If you look at Freud, in short, Freud believed that the deepest part of the personality was, in German, he called it das Es. In English, it's the id. And the id is, gosh, it's harsh. It's this vast repository of negative, terrible, aggressive, competitive, selfish impulses. Freud believed that was the core of who we are. And even the phrase beat the devil out of, which many of us are familiar with, that phrase comes from old Christian child-rearing textbooks. The belief was children were born with demonic influence. So these are two of many examples where, oh my God, you can't trust your unconscious. And that's where the dream lives, and that's where the dream comes from. So people are reticent about that. And one of the ramifications you were hinting at earlier, and I've done a lot of work around, is that we are in the middle of an epidemic of dream loss. It may well be that most of what we call sleep loss turns out to be dream loss. In fact, there's evidence for that. And we don't call it that, we call it sleep loss. And it has really profound ramifications for consciousness, for mood, for creativity, and I think for our spirituality.
And it could also have even physical ramifications also, right?
Undoubtedly, we're beginning to see a relationship between dream loss and increased chronic inflammation. We know that kids that don't dream well are more likely to put on weight. It probably affects our immune system. We're just beginning to learn this about dreaming.
So as a researcher, what do you see as being the causes of dream loss?
Well, I think so much of it is built into culture. So we are a culture that relies, I think, excessively on mind-altering substances. And I say excessively because I think there's a legitimate use for conscious use to expand our sense of self. But it's astounding when you look at the statistics about how many Americans drink huge amounts of alcohol, in excesses of the amount that the AMA or public health officials would recommend. Millions of Americans drink 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 or more drinks a day. Millions, many, many millions. Alcohol, we call it spirits because I think people drink because they want to alter their consciousness, which is positive, but alcohol dramatically interferes with REM sleep. And people don't like hearing this, but the truth is that cannabis, like alcohol, which can actually help you relax and fall asleep, but then consequently or subsequently also interferes with REM sleep. So lifestyle, the substances we use, so many medications, commonly used medications. In fact, most psychiatric medications, tranquilizers, benzodiazepines, most antidepressants, most psych medications around the world to varying degrees interfere with REM sleep. So our substances, our medications, and then the last part of it is the brain prioritizes deep sleep, true sleep, over REM sleep, which means if you don't have enough time in your night to get both, you will get sleep, but you will lose out on dreaming. And most awakenings occur in the latter third of the night or early morning. So those awakenings don't cut out sleep, they cut out dreaming. You put all this together and we're living in a world where people are dreamless.
Is there a way to regain our normal sleep cycle and have REM dreams without a drastic change in lifestyles?
No. The key part of your question is without a drastic change in lifestyle. I don't think so. I think we need to recognize that the way we live our waking daily lives has a profound effect on our night life. We can't just throw a switch at the end of the day. A lot of people try this now. They dim the lights, they pop some melatonin, they do a little yoga nidra, and all those things are fine, but it's not just that simple. Part of the problem is that we as a culture also were hyper aroused. So arousal in medicine refers to being awake, but we are excessively awake. We're too awake. The reason most people can't sleep is not because they're not sleepy enough. It's because they're too awake. And this ties into something I've written about, I'm writing more about. We are a wake-centric culture. And what I mean by that is like we live in, it's kind of a matrix that we don't even know we're in. I call it the wake trix. It's the dome that the Truman Show took place in. We really believe that there's this palpable limit to life and it's waking. And so we look at sleeping and dreaming as being secondary and subservient to waking life. That, you know, the only reason we sleep, the only reason we dream is to make us better waking. The presumption there is that waking is the gold standard for consciousness. This is where it's at. This is the primary way of being conscious. And waking, if waking is not modulated, if it's not tempered rhythmically by rest, by sleep, by dreams, it just spins out, which it's done. You know, life today is like living inside of an AM radio. Everything is sort of fast. Everything goes faster and higher and quicker. People are thinking faster and talking faster and in a greater hurry. And it's harder and harder to slow down.
How can people find out more about you and your work?
I have a website. Actually, the easiest way to find the website is to Google my first name, Rubin, and the word sleep or the word dream. And the website's drnaiman.com. There's a lot of my writing is available on the website. I've written for years for HuffPost and other places. So there are articles there, my books, audiobooks, and much more than you'll ever need is available there.
We've been talking about dream loss with psychologist and sleep and dream specialist, Rubin Naiman. We'll be right back with our next guest. In a recent segment, we focused on the concept of family dreaming, that it's possible that family members can have similar dreams about similar subjects at the same time. But that's not all that families have in common. Of course, there are the physical traits that are passed down from generation to generation, but there are also behaviors that we inherit. This can be referred to as our emotional DNA. The thing is, most of us don't realize that the reason we act and react the way we do is because of events that happened way before we were born. One person who has studied this, and in fact is an expert on family dynamics, is Judy Wilkins-Smith. Judy works with individuals and companies to analyze these patterns in order to break these cycles when they result in negative or destructive behaviors. She's also the author of a number of books, including the upcoming Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint, a powerful guide to transformation through disentangling and multi-generational patterns. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Judy.
It is so nice to be back with you.
Oh, and like I said, I must have families on my mind because this is the second program in recent history that I'm talking about families. But Judy, I think that most people never stop to think that the way they behave as a result of patterns started by their ancestors. How did we figure this out in the first place?
How we figured it out was starting to listen to what people were saying and watch their actions and reactions. Excuse me. We noticed that people would say, you look just like your Uncle Harry, or you behave just like your grandmother. And somebody began paying attention to that. What is it that I'm like? If somebody says to you, you're like so-and-so, pay attention and ask them, what do you mean? Because often what they're referring to is that you've inherited or taken on patterns of thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions. And now you're living those as though they were yours. But actually what you're doing is reliving ancient history. You're not fully present, and you're certainly not creating an authentic future.
And I bet when people say, you remind me of so-and-so, it's usually probably a negative behavior that they do.
Unfortunately, yes. However, the beauty of the negative behavior is that it's a limiting behavior that's cycled down to you. And the beauty of that is it's in your hands so that you can reframe it using the gift that was always there that hasn't been seen and turn it into a strength. So anytime somebody says that to you, they're giving you a piece of gold. Pay attention.
That is valuable advice, because most of the time we don't pay attention to these
No, we get annoyed.
Me too. Can you give me some other examples of these kind of traits that get passed down?
Sure. Well, patterns of thoughts about money, relationships, leadership, career. We were all lawyers. By goodness, you're going to be a lawyer too. Money. I am stunned by the money DNA that we inherit. So many of us have either money or love, either money or career. Either we put everything against money and then we wonder why we're struggling with it. We don't realize that money is a friend and a potent force, and in fact, a very spiritual force. And so we begin to pit the one against the other. And so let's suppose that in the Great Depression, great grandfather lost everything, and he said to his kids, you work your whole life and then everything gets taken away from you. The next thing we know, that passes down to grandfather, who says, I'm not going to work that hard, and when I make money, I'm not keeping the money because you know what, it's going to go anyway. Well, we cycle down to dad, and dad's going, easy come, easy go. You know, it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. And then we get to you and you go, but I don't like this. I would really like to have nice things. I would like to enjoy money. Why does it have to be either money or? Why can't I enjoy it? And suddenly we find somebody who becomes a very good steward of money, very kind to money, very good with their use of it, and they have now just changed the emotional DNA for them and for their children. When they can acknowledge what set it off, which was great grandfather, and say that was your loss, it's not mine, we can begin a pattern of assimilation, of enjoyment, and something completely different.
So this kind of explains why we see families who are, generation to generation, stuck in a place, maybe, where they haven't had money, or a family that's stuck in a place where they're always going through divorces and
Exactly. The divorces is a classic one. Yeah. Grandmother got divorced, mother got divorced. Oh, well, that's what you do. You marry the guy and then you divorce him. So, yes.
So let me ask you a question. But so you're saying these are passed down traits. Does it work like physical traits that are passed down? For example, I may have brown hair and maybe my sister has blonde hair because they both run in the family and they've gotten passed down.
Right.
So do the emotional traits get passed down like that, where I may feel it, but my sister doesn't?
Absolutely, because it depends on which part of the system you're sensing into. But if you're very close to mom and that's the way mom thought, well, that's the way you're going to think. Conversely, you're not so close to mom and she's not good with money and you go, I'm not doing that. And in a way, mom has just given you a gift too. She's given you the gift of do it differently. So anytime we think that our parents or the people around us are not very nice or they're jerks or we reject them, be careful, because gifts that we give to our children or that are given to us don't always come in a pretty pink parcel with a nice sparkly bow. Sometimes it's don't do what I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always like, I always used to say that about parenting. I said, I made mistakes as a parent. I said, well, don't do what I did.
Exactly. And that's very sound advice, because you, by saying that, are already beginning to change that emotional DNA. I thought this, I felt this, I did this. Don't do that. Here are the consequences of that. Don't think that, because you're going to lock yourself into a very unkind truth. Don't feel that, because you're not going to feel good. So you really are also guiding that next generation when you say that, if they would pay attention.
Yeah, if they would pay attention is the hard part, because most of the time it just, you know, mom said that, who cares?
Exactly. Until a little bit further down the line, somebody says, you're just like your mom, and they go, oh no. Oh yes.
And then they start to pay attention.
Absolutely. What was that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in science, there was always been this great debate versus nature versus nurture. So how can we identify these patterns, and how do they know that they come from our families and not from the environment that we are living in or our culture?
So there are two things. Many times people don't have access to their family genealogy, so they don't know if it came from them. But if you look at your own life and you look at the patterns and the events that began them, that's where you begin to identify this. The event that began it and what you were doing at that time in your life. Then you want to sit down and write down everything that you said about it or thought about it, felt about it, and did around it. And you'll start identifying the patterns that you've created, because together those form a very potent piece. If you believe strongly enough in what you're telling yourself and your feelings agree with that, and your actions align with that, it becomes the truth. Only it's not the truth, it's just your truth, and you can change that anytime you want to.
Yeah, that's an important point, because I think people think that they can't change.
Oh, they can. And neuroscience tells us this. Neuroscience tells you one new thought, one new feeling, one new action that you buy into, and you are rewiring your brain. And of course you can.
How do you get people to understand that? Because so many people just will be adamant about, no, this is the way I am. And
I would say if somebody says, this is the way I am, I would ask them, is this only the way you are, or is this the way your system is? And what is the cost and what is the benefit? You can always take the benefit, but are you sure you want to get saddled with a cost?
Mm-hmm. That's the point that really has to be made clear, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. You also talk about the concept of family constellation. So can you explain more about what that is and what you mean by it?
Sure. So I'm going to broaden it just a little bit, because I work with systemic work and constellations, and constellations can be organizational constellations or family constellations, and it's a really broad subject. But if we lock into family constellations, your primary pattern maker is your family. So that's the one we look at first to discover, where did your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors come from? And what we do is a unique piece where we dimensionalize the family system. So either using inanimate objects like pieces of paper that are very specially constructed, or live representatives, we set those in a relationship to each other. So you might say, if I said to you, okay, Debbie, give me a picture of your mom, your dad, your siblings, yourself. You might put dad sort of leaning out of the circle. You might put mom in the center. You might put yourself right next to mom or between mom and dad. You might put siblings somewhere else. It gives us an immediate picture of what is going on in the system. But more than that, it also uses multiple senses to explore what's happening. So you are now seeing it, feeling it, touching it, walking it, talking it. And because you can do that, and because you can walk through it and dimensionalize it, you're having insights you never had before. You're having thoughts and feelings you never had before. And it becomes a very strong embodied experience. And indeed, most times it becomes that aha experience that we talk about. And it's a double aha. It goes, aha, I'm not trapped in this pattern. Oh my goodness, double aha, look what's possible for me.
That is fascinating. Well, Judy, how can people find out more about you and your work and your new book?
They can find out more about me and what I do at judywilkins-smith.com. And incidentally, they'll also find Constellations meditations there. I created two very unique ones that'll take them through an entire constellation. And then the book is available at all good booksellers right now. It only drops June 6th, but it is available for pre-order now. And of course, it's Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint. And I wrote it so that every single person could do that in case they couldn't get to an event. They could still make it happen for themselves.
We've been speaking about family dynamics with Judy Wilkins-Smith. We'll be right back with our next guest. One of the things I've noticed in my years as a dream life coach is how easy it is for all of us to hide our truth. We'll tell ourselves and others that I'm fine, I'm okay, even when in the pit of our stomachs we feel that somehow things aren't all right as they stand. We'll pretend we're fine when we're sick. We'll say things are good when we're afraid of what the future will hold. But in order for us to live our dream lives, we have to dig down and admit our truths. It's only then that we can grow and live our lives with integrity. This is something my guest knows all too well. For over 2 decades, Donna Tashjian has been helping her clients rediscover their truths. Through her vibrant living programs, she's been able to help them turn fear into excitement and shed the lies that keep them stuck in despair. Donna is also the author of the book, An Umbrella on a Sunny Day, and hosts the podcast, You Were Designed for Greatness. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Donna.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here.
So, Donna, why do you say we were designed for greatness?
Oh, well, I guess I say it because it's true. That's in its simplest form. And learning that we are designed for greatness, but the question is what does greatness look like for you? Because we often think it's something different than yourself. I'll put it that way. We compare. It's like, I'm not that grand or whatever, but understanding what's actually great is when you're you. The world needs you to be you, authentically you. And for me, finding out how to be authentically me has been a journey. I don't know about you.
Oh, yes.
Discovering who I really am and what I really love and what my really gifts are has been one of my favorite journeys. Well, not always favorite, but but most of the time, because sometimes learning about who we really are comes when there's adversity. And that part isn't always like, yay. But the things that we learn as we go through adversity or difficult things in our life and discovering who we really are, that we're much stronger than we think, and not having to be who other people think we should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also because we see that a lot of women hide from their greatness. Why do you think this is the case then?
Hide. I think that we hide to try to feel safe, to be able to protect ourselves. And for some reason, at some point in our life, something that you have said, or I'll say me, have said was wrong, not okay, maybe told to be quiet, and that's saying it a nice way, or not valued. And so if I don't value what my voice carries, the thoughts that I have, and I've been told I'm wrong, then I begin to hide because our basic need is for love and acceptance. And if you're going to reject me, at least it appears rejection, then I'm not going to do that, right? Because that causes pain. So we end up hiding who we truly are. But we think it helps. But anybody that's done it actually knows it doesn't. It doesn't really help. It doesn't make me feel safe. It makes me still feel unvalued. And it also prevents me from having deep relationships, because if I'm wearing a mask, you can't really know me. And so as we can begin to be authentic and move through that and begin to share our voice in small ways and grow in that in boldness, then we can actually have the things that we actually want. Love and acceptance.
That is so true. But tell me about your journey, because I have the feeling that perhaps you weren't always living your truth.
Oh, no. No, not always. I grew up in a blended family, which is rather common today, was not nearly as common to me, at least in my sphere, when I was a child. And in the merger of the two families, I inherited 3 brothers, and I was the only girl for a while. So you can imagine the amount of teasing and bugging and things that little boys just seem to do. My mother's response, and as an adult, I can totally see it. My mother's response was, well, if you'll quit crying and reacting, they'll leave you alone. So in essence, what was communicated is stuff your feelings, pretend like it's okay, and eventually they'll leave you alone. I'm not sure that it worked that way.
And did you really want them to leave you alone? I mean, I think you probably wanted, some interaction there.
But I didn't want them to be mean and harass me or to irritate me or to aggravate me, because they did do things to see if they could make me cry. And so, yeah, that whole part of that whole picture. So I learned at a very young age what was okay and what wasn't okay in that particular environment. And so I quit saying what I thought. And then as a teenager, a very traumatic thing occurred. And at 14, I became pregnant. At 15, I had a baby. More shame, more embarrassment, more blame, more all of the things, fear, anger, resentment, all of the stuff. And so I learned even more, suck it up. You just suck it up. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter whether it was right or wrong. It doesn't matter what happened to you. Just because we don't talk about it, we just move forward. So all of those kind of things. So I was 18 with a 3-year-old, and you learn to be tough on the outside. You look like you have it together, and you're all, but inside you're just a melted pool.
I would think you would have to adopt a tough persona just for survival.
To survive. And that's what I'm talking about, is we've learned this to survive, but I don't need to be doing that anymore. But we keep doing it because it's what we've learned to survive. You're absolutely right.
Right. But I think we realize that survival just isn't enough.
It is not enough. No.
It's not. We want to thrive, and so very often we don't know how to. Yes. Which brings me to the next point I want to make, is that you then decided to help other women not feel the same way that you felt, by founding Vibrant Living International. Yes. To help them discover their own greatness. Why did you call it Vibrant Living? What does it mean to live vibrantly?
Well, you were talking about we're existing. And I know you've heard the saying, I don't really know who originated it. Let's say we live 70 years and, 50 of it is the same year over and over and over again. And we don't really live. And so I wanted to be able to bring tools, strategies, stories of how to actually live vibrantly. And I'm not pretending that I've got it all together, because I'm learning as I go how to live more and more vibrantly. I thought I was, and then I do it, and then I'm living more. It's like every year. And so learning how to really enjoy life, to really love it and live it to the fullest potential.
Which should be everybody's goal, and not just everybody's goal, but everybody's existence.
Yes,
it should indeed. One of the methods that you use to help people is a program, and I love the name of it, of turning your baggage into luggage. So tell me about that. And because I would think, isn't luggage and baggage the same thing?
It does sound similar, but everybody kind of gets it when they first hear it. It's like baggage could be luggage. But when I came up with this analogy, is baggage is, remember in college, in that kind of age group, that you packed all your belongings in black trash bags. Oh, and there's so many things that we have packed away in our in baggage, in trash bags, that's happened along the way. And they're in black ones because we're not going to look at it again. It's that place that you hide things inside yourself. And but the thing is when something's buried, it decays and doesn't always smell great. And then certain things rip open a bag here, and then we quickly stuff it back in there. That's baggage. Baggage, in my workshop that I teach, baggage thinking is the things that make you feel when you think about it. There's angst, there's anger, there's pain, there's resentment. Those are things that are still not, they're alive still. They're still not processed. They're still not healed, would be another word for that. And you think things like, at least I did, somebody needs to pay. This is wrong. This wasn't right or just or fair. Those are the kind of things that the thinking around baggage thinking is. Luggage thinking is, I can't change it. What happened to me in my life that I've shared a little bit about, glossing it over a lot of the pain, but I can't change it. This is part of me. It's now become part of who I am, but I am going to use this to grow and be the best me I can be. I call these things gifts wrapped in sandpaper. They are not pleasant. They rub us the wrong way, and we don't know what to do with them. But I have 4 steps to get from baggage to luggage. Luggage picture is that you have your hat on and sunglasses, and you're going somewhere you want to go. You're going somewhere with a smile on your face. It's exciting. The luggage is pretty, and you are headed there. So that's the picture that I want you to get. 4 steps.
Kind of like packing your bags for the journey towards your greatness.
Absolutely. You're going somewhere good, and you're on a journey that you would love. And I have 4 basic steps to move from baggage thinking to luggage thinking. They sound super simple, but which they need to be.
Well, it's always simple. It's the execution.
The execution,
very
yes.
hard. So
what's number 1 is look for the gift. Just the idea of, you're in the middle of a pain point. You're in the middle of not enjoying something, and you begin to go, where's the gift? Where's something that I can learn and grow? And just that shifts our perspective. And we see things we wouldn't have saw before when we're grumbling, complaining, and stating things that probably are true. That wasn't fair, it wasn't right, it wasn't just, and somebody should pay. But shifting to where's the gift is number 1. Number 2 is keep a bigger picture or framework in mind. Let's use the example you may have heard before, that your life is a book. Let this incident or time period of your life be a paragraph, a page, maybe a chapter, but it doesn't have to be your whole life.
What would step number 3 be?
Number 3 is having compassion for others, or another word would be forgiveness. Yes, I said it, forgiveness. And this is a big part of turning our baggage into luggage and actually being free. I have done entire episodes on what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't, and why do we find it so difficult to do. But to suffice us to say today is that is an important step. Is we don't know what it was like to walk in somebody else's shoes. And whatever that is, forgiveness will set you free. That's number 3.
Yeah, and I tell you about that because you said earlier about the idea of, if something isn't going right, we want somebody to pay. And so if you say, well, forgive that person, and you say, no, I want them to pay for it. So yeah, it can be very difficult to get to that point where you can forgive. And what's step number 4?
And step number 4 is get support and help. We weren't meant to do this alone. Get a counselor, coach, a good friend, get support to help you through this. There's already somebody who's walked in your shoes. We think we're the only ones, but we're not. And so learning how to get support is number 4.
How can people find out more about you and your work, Donna?
The easiest way is my website. On my homepage, there's a free ebook, and I've got a lot of free resources available on there as well. There's a schedule tab. There's about all my workshops and different things. So there's a lot of information. And my website is the letter I, vibrantliving.com.
We've been speaking with lifestyle mastery coach Donna Tashjian. We'll be right back with our next guest. How do you define creativity? Do you limit it to people who are in the arts? Or do you believe, as I do, that we all have the power within us to be creative, which is the ability to generate ideas or possibilities that can be used to solve problems in all areas of our lives? The challenge arises when we feel stuck and don't know how to climb out of our rut or how to manifest what's hiding inside us. That's where my guest comes in. Jeff Leisawitz is a coach who specializes in helping creative types who are ready to live a life of purpose, connection, and creativity. He's the author of the book, No Effing Around, the No BS Guide for Getting Your Creative Dreams Off the Ground. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Jeff.
Hello, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Well, I'm going to start off with this, Jeff. How do you define creativity?
How do I define creativity? Good question. Well, creativity is really the intention on the part of an individual to put ideas together and take action, right? We often feel like, I think a common definition is like creativity is being a painter or being a musician or a dancer or a poet. And those things certainly use creativity. But creativity itself is really taking different ideas, putting them together, and then moving in some direction, taking some kind of action. The agency of a human to move forward is really creative. Every action is really creative in some way.
How do you manifest creativity in yourself?
Well, I kind of do it constantly, from riffing on your podcast to music. I'm a big musician and producer. I've made films. I'm a writer, poet, photographer, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really a huge part of who I am.
But you do call yourself a coach for creative types. So who are the type of people who do tend to use your services?
Mm-hmm. Really all kinds. I mean, I've got plenty of musicians, plenty of writers, but I also have abstract painters and dancers. I've got a slam poet these days, got a guy who does video projections. I mean, all kinds of crazy and cool and beautiful things. But I also want to say that it's not just, creatives. It's what I call heart-centered humans. Okay, people who are aligned or seeking their truth, a deeper kind of truth, and want to express that and move forward with that, whether it's in a creative field or as some kind of hobby or in life and career. I've worked with a lot of what I sort of called heart-centered solopreneurs, people who are doing the thing not just for the money. Of course, we all have to make some money in our work, but there's more to it than selling widgets, that kind of thing.
Oh, there certainly is. And do they come to you when they're just starting out their businesses, or?
People come to me all kind, from I have an idea, whether it's a business or a book or something like that, or they're deep into it and they're ready to step it up, or they're stuck, or, really anything.
So what's the biggest roadblock or problem that you find in your clients?
Well, there are a number of them, certainly, but one of them might be the comfort zone. Okay.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, the comfort zone, the comfort zone's comfortable, as you might, notice from the name. The comfort zone is essentially the space in our life where we feel comfortable, where we feel safe. Not really necessarily the physical space, but the emotional space. I know how to do this job, so I'm just gonna kind of stay in this realm. And there's nothing wrong with the comfort zone. We all need that. The problem is when we stay in the comfort zone too long, there is no growth, right? And growth is, the gateway to a bigger life, to more experience, to tapping into our dreams. So, one of the, very basic way that I suggest to the clients to move forward out of the comfort zone is to identify a spot where you would like to move out and understand the why, and we can talk about that later. But to take a step out, do something uncomfortable and stay there. Feel that discomfort, right? Nobody likes discomfort, but that is what you got to do. You stand there, you breathe it, and sooner or later, the comfort zone will actually expand to meet you, and you will feel comfortable, except bigger, right? You did the thing, you dealt with it, and now you feel comfortable. So now you take another little step out. You do these things just, regularly every day or every week, and you will be shocked at how much bigger and richer and more powerful and closer to your dreams your life becomes.
Yeah, I totally concur with that. And I often tell people, that step that you make to get out of it doesn't have to be a huge step at first, especially if it's very alien to you. You could just take a little baby step, because if you take a little baby step every day, what started out as a small little circle becomes, a huge universe after a while, as long as they keep after it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. And it's practice. It's just take a step out and stay there, right? It is uncomfortable. That's the whole point. So if it's uncomfortable, you're doing it right. If it's not uncomfortable, you're doing it wrong.
Just so true. So what other ways do you help your clients get out of their own way and discover their creativity?
Sure. Well, I use, when I approach a new client, I kind of look at them, look at the process in two different ways. One is what I call the outer world. And the outer world is understanding why you are moving towards this goal, like really understanding it, getting the systems in place, getting the accountability, which is always great with a life coach. When people see me every week, they generally pay attention and do the things that they, say they're going to do. Working on bad habits, exchanging bad habits, all that kind of stuff is the outer world. And we all need that. And without that, it's really not going to work. However, the inner world is actually more powerful. And the inner world is the psychology or the subconscious beliefs and identities that drive us. Okay, so I use various tools from my experience as an NLP practitioner. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic repatterning, as well as guided meditations and other kinds of tools and things to help people identify the beliefs or identities that may be holding them back. Because we all have these beliefs and identities about ourselves and about the world. And these are largely formed when we're young, when we're very young, little kids. And if these unconscious beliefs say something like, I'm smart and good looking and capable, hey, fantastic. That's a belief that's probably pretty positive. But if your belief about the world is out to get me, and, if I'm not smart enough, and, if things get hard, I just quit. Like, those are patterns that are running in the subconscious that are never going to allow you to fully succeed and become who you are and attain your dreams. So we work on both levels, depending on where the client is and where they're going and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. How long does it take for a client to usually get that understanding of themselves?
The rest of their lives. That said, we make breakthroughs along the way in the coaching. I mean, that's what we do. We are obviously complex, dynamic beings. And do you ever have yourself figured out completely? No, I don't think anyone who's ever lived really has. But what we strive to do in the work is just step it up, get better, have a more meaningful life, understand ourselves, free the pain that might be holding us back. And then, then there's more energy to move towards our dreams.
Yeah, I think it's, we have to come to that realization that we're on a journey, and there are going to be highs, like the breakthroughs you get, which would be the high, and then, the breakdowns when, something triggers us and we take a step backwards. But
Right.
It is a journey. And when we realize that and accept that, I think it makes the journey easier to go on.
Absolutely. You can't expect to be happy every minute of your life. It's impossible. No one's ever done it. Although for some reason that seems to be an American ideal, right? Be happy every minute. It's like, it can't happen. How about
And do it right
fun?
now.
And do it right now. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, it is a journey.
Well, you touched on something before, which I want to get back to, and that's people who come to you, and actually most people, I would say, even people who, don't get coached, don't really understand their why. So can you explain more about that and how you help people find it?
Sure. So the why is the deep motivating behavior behind our actions. And it's always there on some level, but most people are very unconscious about what it is. When you become conscious of what your why is and really sort of fire up that knowledge or that idea with energy, you will move forward faster and more powerfully. So here's a little example. I'm moving to a new city and I need a dentist. My tooth hurts, right? So I'm going to interview 2 dentists. Talk to the first dentist. Hey, why'd you become a dentist? Dentist says, well, I was always good at science and chemistry, and my dad was a dentist, and I figured I could make a lot of money. And I like, as a kid, how the chair goes up and down. So I became a dentist. I'm like, okay. You go to the next dentist. You're like, so why'd you become a dentist? And she says, well, when I was a kid, I fell off the jungle gym face first into the concrete, bashed out several of my teeth. And our family dentist really was kind and helped me put my face back together and just, really helped me through a really tough time. So, I kind of wanted to become a dentist to help other people who had difficulties like that. Okay. All things being equal, which dentist are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one who understands and is motivated by something more than like, oh, I can make a lot of money and the chair goes up and down, right?
Right.
So this is true in really everything that we do. And understanding this and asking ourselves these questions can really help us dial in what is true for us so we understand it. And then we can take action that is aligned with that. Because when we take action that's not aligned with that, that's when a lot of discord and a lot of, friction starts to happen in our lives.
Oh, that's wonderful. How can people find out more about you and your work?
Sure. They can, if they can spell my last name, Leisawitz. You can go to jeffleisawitz.com. It's JEFFLEIS like Sam, AWITZ. You are more than welcome to sign up for a complimentary coaching session to see how I can help you. I've got clients all over the world. So if you've got an internet connection, we can do this thing. And then if you want to check out the book, just go to Amazon or anywhere else, really, and you'll be able to get it.
We've been speaking with Coach Jeff Leisawitz. I hope you enjoyed today's program. If you have, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.